Good morning. This Zoom session is for MTI's Electric Grid Upgrades Program. Our application deadline is October 24th. We've got a few slides here to give you a rundown of the program and how to apply. My colleague Matt Hoffner is here with me, and we are running this program for MTI on behalf of Maine's Department of Economic and Community Development. This EGUP funding, as we're calling it, the funding came from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which was passed at the federal level in March of 2021. Generally, funding to support recovery from the COVID pandemic. At the state level, Maine's legislature passed LD 1733 in July of 2021, which spelled out the spending plan for the roughly $1 billion in discretionary funds available to Maine to recover from the pandemic. And those programs are now deployed through what's known as the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan. So the MJRP website is here, maine.gov/jobs plan. And another source of funding coming soon is maine.gov/BIL. Some new funding opportunities will become available most likely starting next year and the years after that to deploy some of those funds. So Matt will give us a little bit more background on the EGUP program specifically and some of the criteria for the process.
Thanks, Lou. This program, as Lou mentioned, was part of LD 1733 that the legislature passed in 2021. They specifically called out $6.5 million of the $1 billion to be granted to mostly heritage businesses, mostly in rural areas where the electricity availability was hampering the economic growth in the area. So the $6.5 million is specifically to improve the grid in those areas. And as I mentioned, it's primarily for the heritage industries, food processing, forestry, and manufacturing. The award levels that we're looking at, some of these upgrade programs can be multi-millions of dollars. So we realize that although $6.5 million sounds like a lot of money, it could go very quickly depending on which projects actually get awarded. The maximum award will be $4 million. We certainly reserve the right to not go up to that level for some awards, even if that's the amount requested. We will be looking at each application on a competitive basis, and those applications will be scored, and I'll get into the scoring process in a little bit. We have a deadline of October 24th, which means that we'll use the month of November for the review of the applications, and we'll be making the application awards during December. After the awards are made, you'll be contacted by MTI to begin a contracting process. As soon as the contract is executed with MTI, we can begin the dissemination of the funding as well. Next slide. In order to apply for the EGUP program, obviously this is a Maine program. You need to have a significant presence in the state of Maine, or you'll be moving a facility to Maine that will have a need for a grid upgrade. Obviously, the EGUP program, the EGUP funds need to be focused just on the Maine application. If it's a multi-state business, we fully expect that the project has to be just in the state of Maine. The important part of this program is that we have to have funds federally. The requirement is that the ARPA funds have to be expended and used by the recipient by March of 2026. And that's, as I mentioned, a federal requirement. That means that for some of these projects that require a significant amount of permitting and or lead times for some of the equipment and transformers that might be necessary, if the program is not already up, or at least in the planning phase with discussions with the utilities or electrical contractors, there's a good chance that you may not be able to use the money by March of 2026. So we're looking for projects that aren't quite shovel ready, but certainly are moving along to ensure that the money will be fully utilized by March of 2026. What kind of programs are or qualify for this funding? It's really any relevant power upgrade that increases capacity. Um, our discussions with both Versant and CMP indicated that the vast majority of the upgrades are for three-phase, or what they refer to as polyphase upgrades to manufacturing facilities. Battery storage systems are also a legitimate use of the funds, and they would qualify for the funding. As part of the application, we are actually requiring that there be at least a one-to-one match on the investment from that would match the EGUP funding. There's actually, as part of the scoring rubric that I'll discuss in a second, if the match is greater than one-to-one, you would get additional points for your application. We will have fairly simple semi-annual reporting requirements. What we've been doing is sending out simple SurveyMonkey surveys that take approximately 10 minutes to tell us the status of your program, how the money is being used. And again, it's not onerous, but it's information that we need in order to satisfy the reporting that we have to make back to the federal government. As with all federal funds over the last 2 years, every organization that receives federal funding must get a unique entity ID, or what they call a UEID number, from sam.gov. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but most companies at this point have probably already secured a UEID, and that number will be part of your application process. And then finally, we will be checking to make sure that any business that's doing business in the state of Maine is in good standing with the Maine Secretary of State. Next chart. The evaluation criteria. Once you submit this application, you'll get confirmation that we have received the application, and the material that you would attach, which is outlined on our site, but it would be financial information, and historical P&Ls and balance sheets. We have 5 reviewers that will be scoring each of the applications. We have industry expertise, we have Maine expertise, we have representatives from the governor's energy office, we have representatives from DCD, and we also have an engineer and staff from MTI that will be scoring these applications. There's 4 categories shown here that represents about 80% of the points that would be available when this application is scored. The most important ones are economic impact, which would be about 25% of the total, team, which is about 25% of the total, the value proposition, meaning is the product that is being manufactured, does it have strong market fit and demand? Is it an innovative product? Is it a product that we would expect to see growth in that company, which would eventually mean more jobs as well? And then finally, what's the technical plan for the implementation and the capacity upgrade that is outlined in the application? The last 2 sections that are not on this chart, but that will add a little bit of points. One is if the company is in a rural area of Maine, what we refer to as a SETI district. The Census Bureau has marked areas of the state that are what they call socially and economically disadvantaged, or SETI areas. So we'll be looking at SETI areas and areas outside of the major metropolitan areas. If you are in that area, you would qualify for another 10 points, 10% of the total score. And then finally is the match. As I mentioned before, if the company is willing to put in more than one-to-one, you would receive slightly more points as part of your application process. Next slide.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so now we'll do a brief rundown of the application process, and I'll do some screen sharing of our website and our online application portal to follow along these steps. So step 1 here, as you see, is to access the information on our website, which most of you have already done if you're accessing this Zoom session. I'll pull that up on the screen now. From MTI's homepage, we've got a section. Our first option here is recovery funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, a number of different programs we've deployed. EGUP is at the top because that's our current program. This is the details page for EGUP, which gives a lot of information. There's some bullets up here to take you to different sections of the information page. All of these are important pieces of information that Matt has already discussed. How do I apply is our next step here. And we've got a nice little checklist for working through the application process. Again, so the website here is where you start. There's a couple of pieces of information you're going to need to access from this website. The first is the application Word document. If you don't have access to Microsoft Word, there's also a PDF version of the application document, which you can use to build your application responses in a file format that works for you. So once you download the application Word document, you can open it up, and it looks like this. There's 4 pages here. The first page is some additional instructions, which are quite similar to what we were just looking at on the website. You'll need to complete all of the sections on the following pages of this application Word document. After that, you'll need to collect electronic files from the items in this checklist here. You'll need a W-9 form. There's a blank version of the W-9 here. You'll need income statements for prior years of operations back as far as 2021. A current balance sheet. As Matt indicated, you'll need to have a UEID registered, and you'll need to be prepared to enter that number in to the online application portal. And lastly, there's a brief agreement that we ask all applicants to sign and submit with their online application to confirm that they do agree to comply with all requirements of this, both federal and state funding requirements. And lastly, the last step of the application process, once you've got all the application questions answered and you've got all the application electronic files collected, you'll use this link right here to access the online application portal for the EGUP program. Before we go there, I'll just briefly go down through the following pages of this application. There are 6 sections that ask questions about your company, about your request, about your matching funds, about your team, the value proposition, the technical plan, as well as a brief summary of the progress you've already made regarding all the permits that will be required for your proposed electric grid upgrades. And the last page is a disclosure and confidentiality statement for you to review, and you'll be asked to electronically sign this statement in the online application portal. So the easiest thing to do is just click Save As up in the top of the Word document here, save this file to your desktop, and you can type your responses directly into the application Word document right here. So that's the easiest way to do it. Again, if you don't have Word, you can use another file format and then save as a PDF to be uploaded into the online application portal. So once you're ready, you use this link to access the online application portal, which will bring you to this page here. You will need to, if you haven't applied for MTI funding before, you will need to create an account. You need to use an email address to create that account, and be sure to use an active email address, ideally associated with your business, that is going to be your email username, and then you'll create a password as well, and you select new applicant if this is your first time, and you'll get that email and password set up. Once you've got that set up, you can log in, and it will take you to the online application portal. Sometimes the portal can function what seems like a bit slowly compared to some other websites, but that patience is necessary, as this process will take. Once you've got everything compiled, all your application documents, you'll need at least 30 minutes to go through the fields and the tabs of this online application form. And quite possibly it could take significantly more time than that. So I would set aside at least an hour To do this, we recommend that you submit the online application in one setting. You can save and come back later, but we've had a few people on prior application rounds. They didn't completely finish the forms online. They only saved them. They got an email confirming that their partial application was saved, but they failed to submit the final complete the submission process. So that does need to be completely submitted by 11:59 on Tuesday, October the 24th. So just bear that in mind. So there's 5 tabs at the top of the application of the online form here. There's the application tab, job quality and governance tab, upload documents tab, disclosures and signature, and then a final tab for you to review everything that you've entered before you submit. So this first tab, application, relatively basic information that we need to be able to sort the applications and report to our federal and state oversight for this program. Some demographic data, some basic information about the timeline for your application. The next page asks some more specific questions about your current employees and the wages they are paid, as well as other benefits offered, and some questions about your company's governance. The third tab here, upload documents, is where you upload all documents. You have to choose a file, and then once you've chosen a file, that will pop up on the screen, and then you click the upload button to complete that process. You have to do that for all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 upload fields. Each of these are a required upload. Once you've completed these, you can go back up to the top and you'll be asked to sign the disclosure electronically, and then you'll have the option to review and submit before you complete the process. And as you see, since I haven't completed the fields, this will tell you what you still need to complete. And then once you're done, at the bottom or the top of the page, you'll be able to click submit. So that is a brief rundown of the application process. And as Matt had noted earlier, once you complete the online application form, you will receive an email notification to that email address you've used to log into the online portal. The email will confirm a successful submission. And again, just be aware, we do make it clear in the text of the email that you receive whether you've only partially saved your application or whether you have completed the online application. So just bear that in mind, that you need to make sure you've completely finished the process before October 24th. All right, Matt. And then as Matt had noted, we will be reviewing all of these applications throughout the month of November, and we intend to announce the award decisions in early December. And we'll begin deploying funds in 2024 after we've executed award contracts with each of the selected recipients. And Matt, if you can tell us a little bit more about the registration process for UEIDs.
Yeah, again, the UEID is a number that the federal government will use to identify the businesses that receive federal funding. It's also used by the government for those businesses that try to sell services or product to the federal government. But in this case, it's really just being used to track those receiving ARPA funding. But most businesses at this point probably have a UEID. When it first came out, it was extremely confusing and difficult for businesses who had questions to get cooperation from the federal government to get a valid UEID. But I think most of that has now been ironed out. If there are any questions about getting a UEID, we have links on our site that would help you, and YouTube videos that will show you exactly what to look for as you apply to sam.gov for a UEID. But the UEID is required before any funding can go out the door.
Yeah, and just to show folks here on the MTI website, as Matt mentioned, we do have a section of the recovery funding pages dedicated to information on the UEID. and even a brief YouTube walkthrough on how to apply correctly. And that YouTube video is from our good friends at Maine PTAC. So that concludes our slide presentation for today. Any questions that you have about the EGUP program can be directed to our email address, arpagrants@mainetechnology.org. We certainly encourage you to submit any questions. Obviously, there's lots of information up on the website. We've tried to make that as comprehensive as possible, but we understand that some folks will have some additional questions as they attempt to work through the application process. So we thank you for taking the time to watch our video, and we hope you find this information helpful, and we wish you all the best of luck in applying to the program. And one last reminder that the application deadline is 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. All right, thank you all, and have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Very
All right,
informative.
makes sense.
Yeah, it did.
All right.
Very, very clear. Yeah.